FPL Game Week 12 Wildcard Draft. Game Week 12 is the last international break until March and is, in my opinion, the best time to activate the wildcard chip before it expires in Game Week 19. So today we'll be going through my favourite wildcard draft for Game Week 12, as well as the updated Vert verified power ranking, my top 5 for the next 5. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash that like button and hit that subscribe, and let's get into it. What's up? It's FPL Vert, where arrows go green, or we tried to make them green because we got to 70k and we're now at 659k after 5 red arrows in a row. So we'll talk about that next week in my team selection, but today we'll be going through my top 5 for the next 5, the Vert verified power ranking. But if you want to skip to the wildcard draft, it's just at the end of the video. But coming in at number 1, just because of the better fixtures for the longer term, as well as the better defense, as you can see by the expected goals conceded, Robert Sanchez will be number 1. He also has a propensity to get like double-digit hauls. Of course, he's been able to save a penalty this year already. He also saved a penalty last year and the year before that. Verbruggen is yet to do anything of the sort in the Premier League, so Verbruggen will come in at number 2. I think the 0.2 saving is pretty minimal when you compare the goals conceded, and Sanchez actually makes more saves anyway, so he's better goalkeeper pick in my opinion. And then the rest are obviously, Pope at 5 million. He's a decent goalkeeper as well, as obviously we would remember from Burnley times, but I think at 5 million that's a bit too much. Raya is good, but I just don't think, 1, a premium goalkeeper is worth it, and 2, when you can triple up on Arsenal and get like an attacker, Arsenal's players are back now, you expect them to be attacking better. I think you'd rather have, a Gabriel, a Saka, and maybe an attacker rather than a Raya, Gabriel, and a Saka. And Fabianski comes in at number 5 because he's 4 million, and yeah, he should definitely be on your wild card for sure. Going into the defenders, and I think just on a pure value pick, Lewis Hall has to be number 1, and he's 4.4 million, and he is the starter for Newcastle in my opinion, and in most Newcastle fans' opinion as well. I mean, obviously his competition is Lloyd Kelly, who I don't think is anywhere near the first team, and of course he's just had an England call-up as well, and I do believe that Tino Livramento and Lewis Hall are the future at fullback for Newcastle, anyway, in the foreseeable future at least. And he also has a great baseline, which means if he gets a defensive or attacking return, he's more likely than anyone else to get a bonus. So I think at 4.4 million, he's an easy pick, and obviously so cheap you can rotate as well. But my favourite pick for Game Week 12 and going forward is actually Luca Dean, who's a little bit more expensive, but I think you should just make a way to get him in. Only Saka, Cole Palmer and Mateus Cunha have created more big chances across all positions, and of course he's got the most big chances created out of all defenders, level with Leif Davis. But the main difference with Leif Davis and Luca Dean is that Aston Villa, at least at home anyway, have the best expected goals conceded figure, and you look at their next 4 games at home, so you look at their next 3 games at home, and they make up the bottom 4 in terms of goals scored in the league. So you could either expect a clean sheet, an attacking return, or maybe both. And I think Luca Dean should be the one to go for. Of course, Ait Nuri as well. We all know about him. He's really got 3 goals this year. And you can he's a plug and play really. You just get him in. Kirkers as well. Of course, he's great value at 4.4 million. We already saw his double assist performance against the champions with a 10-pointer, and he's cheap enough to rotate as well. And I do think Gabriel, you do need a slice of the Arsenal attacker in some form, and Gabriel is the best. He's even gone down. He's a bit discounted now if you're buying new. And of course, we all know about his prowess from set pieces, so he should be the one. Into the midfielders, and we've got Mo Salah keeping number 1 from last week. I think everyone has taken notice of what he's doing. He's obviously the first player to pass 100 points this year, which is a bit incredible in 11 weeks. Obviously, he's averaging 9.7 points per match. And I think the main difference is this year he's a lot better for bonus because they've changed the system a little bit, and he's a bit more clinical, and he's winning more fouls, and he's missing less big chances. So when he scores, he's pretty much into the bonus straight away. So I think, obviously everyone knows that Mo Salah, you need to Mo Salah. Bruno Fernandes, bit of a knee-jerk maybe, but I think if you are wildcarding, you want to jump on to a pretty exciting bandwagon. Of course, as we all know, Ruben Amorim is coming in as Manchester United's new head coach. It's a new era, And I think, maybe Ipswich might be a bit more difficult than it looks on paper, but I think Everton at home, the first home game of a new era, it's Everton at home. We all know how they are in away games. I think you just want to slice of that. And then you'll drop him off into 14. And I would go to Semenyo or Smith Rowe. I think in my current team I'd be going to Semenyo in game week 14, but definitely for the first two, just jump onto Bruno Fernandes. Morgan Rogers, of course, we need an enabler somewhere. And as I mentioned for Luca Dean, 3 of the next 4 games are plum. Crystal Palace, Brentford and Southampton are 3 of the worst away teams in the league at the moment. And then Cole Palmer and Saka, they're both flagged, but you're going to want both of them long term. More so Palmer, in my opinion. He's a bit of a flat track bully, if it's fair to say. He's had 4 games against the Big Six this year and hasn't returned in any of them. So, but I think he'll find his feet against the lesser sides for sure. And of course, Bukayo Saka, we all know what he's about. Palmer and Saka have got the most big chances created in the league, and of course they pose goal threat as well. Pretty easy picks in my opinion. Into the forwards, and yes, Erling Haaland has left. I know. I stuck by him until the very end, until literally game week 11. I believed in him, but I think at his price, at 15 million, he needs to be scoring at least a brace, maybe every other week to justify his inclusion, because of course we've got mid-price assets, we've got the premium midfielders that we want to fit into one team. And while he scored in his last 2, but it's just not really enough at the moment. So I think Isak would be my number 1 pick. I think West Ham at home is a great entry point, probably one of the best you can ask for. And he has scored in his last 4 in all competitions, and Newcastle seem to be finding some form as well. I think João Pedro is a great enabler at 5.4 million. You can't really go wrong with his price. And we saw his man of the match display against the champions Man City. And of course Fabian Hurza talks him up all the time. He just seems like that, that number. Well, he wears number 9, but he probably should be wearing number 10 in the Brighton team. He has that little magic, that gold dust that every team needs. Jackson, I think, is going to become pretty popular over the coming weeks. If you look at Chelsea's fixtures in a greater view, they're just all green for the next 10 game weeks, I believe. So I think Jackson would be going straight in. Matheus Cunha is an interesting one because Wolves do not attack that well. They've got, the worst XG for any team in the league. But Matheus Cunha himself is a very talented player. I do think the next 3 are not as good as they seem on paper, because of course Fulham away is not a good fixture at all. In fact, Fulham have got the second best XGC conceded figure in the whole league. Bournemouth at home, as we know, Bournemouth, they already defeated Arsenal and Man City this year, so they're no joke team, especially at home. And then Everton away, we all know what Goodison's like. So I think if you want to go to Matheus Cunha, maybe go to game week 15. Get the top 3 first and then maybe hop off maybe. But then Jackson has Brentford at home, so it's down to personal preference, I guess. And then Evan Nielsen's a nice differential, I guess, if you like differentials. I think he's a bit more focal to the team than Semenyo. Semenyo's actually only got 1 goal in his last 5 games. So if you were looking for a Bournemouth attacker, I'd actually go for Evan Nielsen. Into the wildcard draft, and this is what I would be looking at in my opinion. I think we go with Sanchez in goal. Of course, Gabriel, Hall, Dean, all got home fixtures, which is a great entry point to begin. Then, of course, we've got the power 3 midfield, the premium midfielders, that's Salah, Palmer and Saka. Of course, Saka and Palmer are both flagged at the moment, but it does seem like there'll be international break duties. But of course, if you're on wildcard, you can just sub in whoever you like. Maybe go to Mbeumo, but I haven't really been liking Mbeumo's positioning. He's been pretty wide, and his non-penalty expected goals for the last 4 games is next to nothing. And Brentford's fixtures do fall off pretty soon, so I'll probably look at Smith Rowe if you can't get it. But then I think you just bench the premiums anyway, because they're not going to be out for that long. Then of course you go into the front 3, and you've got João Pedro, Isak and Jackson. I think you can rotate João Pedro and Rogers most weeks, you can. And of course Bruno Fernandes, we'd be going to Semenyo in game week 14 anyway. And we're benching Aït-Nouri because, as I mentioned, Fulham is not an easy game at all, especially at Craven Cottage. And we've got O'Shea now. I used to have Okoli in most of my wildcard drafts, but he hasn't played in the last 2 in the league, and we need a 4 million playing defender for sure, as Fabianski. So that's what my wildcard draft will look like. If you can't afford it, maybe you could downgrade Bruno Fernandes to like a mid-price midfielder. But I do think, especially Luca Dean, you definitely want to jump onto him. I think he's going to be very popular very soon. I think Jackson, you're going to want long term. Palmer, Salah, Saka don't need any introduction, and Isak just looks like he's in form. So what would your wildcard draft look like? Please drop any questions you have into the comments. I will be back for my personal team selection because mine is a little bit different to this. I own Chris Wood, so I need to keep him, I think. But we'll see. And yeah, we'll speak next week. So have a good international break, everybody, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.